Hi, my name is Jeff Schilling, and I'm the Global CISO for Teleperformance. Today, we're going to discuss our journey through the COVID-19 pandemic and how we continue to protect our clients and our remote workers as we evolved from a service delivery model that was mostly brick and mortar operations to now we're mostly a work from home environment. With me today is Colin Black. He's the COO of CrowdStrike, probably our most important security partner when it comes to securing us through that transition. In his role as COO of CrowdStrike, Colin is responsible for leading the growth and scale of the company. And for those who follow the cybersecurity industry, you'll know that CrowdStrike comes up as one of the industry leaders, especially when it comes to endpoint detection and response. Colin, welcome to our forum today. I appreciate you joining us. And I wonder if you could just kick us off real quickly with a high-level description of exactly what CrowdStrike does for its clients.
Sure. And Jeff, thank you very much for the introduction. So CrowdStrike, we're a cybersecurity company. Think of us like the next generation of old cybersecurity favorites you probably know, like McAfee or Symantec. But CrowdStrike was born in the cloud. Meaning we're cloud native. That means that our product was designed and started in the cloud and can take advantage of it from a scaling perspective, rather than a lot of solutions that essentially have been ported to the cloud, which really aren't native and don't scale in the same way. So we're that new next generation of antivirus, if you like. We call it endpoint detect and response, where we're able to see what's going on an endpoint. We use artificial intelligence on that data that we see in the cloud, and we have services like Overwatch, which are a bunch of people who are looking at all the data that comes from your machines in the cloud and look for bad things that are going on, and has your back. We also have services like Complete. We actually will run that service for you, so your cybersecurity is kind of run as a service. And we have many different modules now that provide different value for IT departments based on the data that we do collect in the cloud. Now, I should say the data we get is telemetry-like data. So if you think about a car, you're maybe seeing things like oil pressure and temperature, but you don't hear about the recordings in the car, what's being said in the car. It's kind of like that. We don't have documents, we don't know what's going on, but we do know what's happening with the device. So next generation of antivirus, if you like, cybersecurity at its kind of best, with artificial intelligence and a number of services behind that are proactive and are looking after you.
Yeah, and I tell you, the Overwatch service is something that we leverage at Teleperformance, and it's great. I call it my second pair of eyes that's watching our environment, just in case our security professionals miss something. And it's always a great feeling to know that we got CrowdStrike backing us up. Before we kicked off COVID-19, Teleperformance only had 9,000 remote employees. Now we have over 200,000. And my observation, CrowdStrike was critical as we went through that big transition. And you mentioned the cloud component of CrowdStrike. Can you tell why that was important and made us make that transition much easier?
Yeah, CrowdStrike was born in the cloud. We're cloud native, so we're designed for running in the cloud, meaning that you don't need on-premise infrastructure. We have a small sensor that goes onto an endpoint, and that endpoint can be a mobile device, it can be a Mac, it can be a PC, it can be a server of all different types of flavors. And as long as it has an internet connection, which everything has these days, as long as you have an internet connection, then that data goes to the cloud. And in the cloud, we then apply our artificial intelligence and our other services there. So it's ideal for scaling. It doesn't matter where you are, whether you're at a Starbucks or whether you're at home or whether you're in the office. Our product works for you based on the fact that it doesn't matter where you are. So as people have gone through this pandemic and the acceleration to the cloud as a result of that, and people moving out of the office, it really doesn't matter. Our product was designed to work from anywhere. So it's really helped organizations like yourself, scale and move very fast and get rid of some of the traditional bottlenecks like VPNs and hairpinning through those VPNs and management issues. Because whilst we also do cybersecurity, we also help manage that endpoint remotely as well. So we're able to help people patch on their endpoints as well. So the management is available, but essentially that frictionless scaling, the ability to do it anywhere and scale up on any size, using that cloud native has just been tremendously useful for folks in this particular environment.
Yeah, that was one of the things I noticed as well. It was one of those security controls that worked just as well in brick and mortar as it did at work from home, and we didn't have to do anything. That's exactly the kind of thing that we need when you got to scale from 9,000 to 200,000 people. I just finished reading a study by VMware that it's been identified that there's a 148% increase in ransomware incidents. And for those who don't know what ransomware is, that's when a malicious actor sends code to your computer or to your company, and it basically locks you out of your environment so that you can't use your files. And then the term ransom comes from the fact that you have to pay ransom in order to get it back, and that could be anything from a couple $1,000s to millions of dollars, depending on the scale of their grip that they have on the organization. Colin, I know that's one of the strengths of CrowdStrike. Can you tell us what you guys do to help resist against the ransomware type attacks?
Sure. I mean, what you're seeing with ransomware now is kind of a journey that we're on. Going back several years ago when actors would get into your environment, it was all very stealthy. They were looking to try and get trade secrets, whether it was from finance or whether it was from legal or whether it was your intellectual property. It was all done very stealthily. But we've seen a trend over the last few years that started with the Sony hack, where destruction was becoming acceptable. And ransomware is the latest of that. It's very difficult for folks in those situations. So most traditional antiviruses and folks that are trying to defend from these types of attacks work on signature-based. That is, it's kind of like looking for the number plate on a car, which might draw up outside a bank to rob it, right? So as long as you know the number plate, then you'll catch the robbers. But if you change that number plate at all, then the technology you have isn't going to work. CrowdStrike's behavioral based. We have what we call indicators of attack. And so we look for things that are common to attacks and look for that chain to occur. So for example, in ransomware, one of the first things that happen is a dropper gets put on the endpoint. You then enumerate that device. That means you look across the hard drive on that device and see what files that you may have there. You then will drop some sort of certificate or some sort of encryption key on the end device. You will essentially then remove the backup copies that you found and where backups are. And then you'll go ahead and encrypt that device. So it doesn't matter the technologies you use, the techniques that you use to do that, but the attack will happen in that way. And we look for those behaviors. And when those behaviors happen, then we stop it. So we're active on that endpoint and we'll stop that from occurring. So the ransomware isn't effective. So that behavioral base makes it a lot easier. So it's like in that robbery situation, the car turns up, they change the number plates. And most of the signature-based antivirus at this point will fail. We've noted a car's turned up. Then all the robbers jump out, run into the bank. At this point, well, they still might be getting cash. That's okay. It could be an okay event. But when they get up to the teller, pull out a gun, and then run out with the money, we're kind of like, yep, that's an attack. And at that point, we stop it. And so we use those behaviors in our tool set that essentially allows you to change different things, but we still see the same behaviors and therefore stop it. Very different from signature-based.
Okay, yeah, and that's one of the things I kind of call it our sophisticated guard dog, like a Belgian Malinois that knows by the smell that something's bad. It doesn't necessarily have to see the known signatures.
Right.
As we move into 2020 and early 2021, we've seen an uptick in nation-state activity. And they're coming in with a very sophisticated vector of basically compromising some of the IT tools that many of us use to manage our IT service delivery. Specifically, the most recent events have involved SolarWinds and Microsoft Exchange servers, which just about every company uses. And a lot of times our clients will ask, what are you doing to protect against that type of attack? And my standard answer has always been, we have CrowdStrike monitoring, and then we have the Overwatch service. Can you provide a little more elaboration of what it is you guys bring to the fight against these most sophisticated actors?
Yeah, so firstly, let's state clearly, this was an incredibly sophisticated attack where reconnaissance and a lot of effort was put in for a long time beforehand, before the attack was actually triggered, and a lot of tradecraft in covering their tracks and also in emulating real users. So it was very, very hard to find. But what we are doing is, again, we're looking for those behaviors, those same things that are going on. So we're looking for behaviors in the tool. And when we see those odd behaviors, because still at the end of the day, you're doing something you shouldn't be. So when we see those behaviors, we flag them. Second to that, and that's our artificial intelligence that also, very much helps with that. Second to that, as you say, we have the Overwatch service, and that service is a bunch of folks that are used to looking across all this clouded data with all of our 10,000 plus customers out there, and all of their endpoints, looking for these things happening, just in case anything doesn't pick it up. So we have this human intelligence sitting on top, always looking at the activities in the platform to see what's going on and flagging that if it should. Then we also put things together when we see attacks going off, like a SolarWinds or like the Exchange attacks. We create dashboards in our tools to highlight to our users very quickly whether this is a problem for them or not. And we're very proactive in reaching out to customers as well if we see any issues. So, some of the things I'm very proud about with CrowdStrike is the way in which we manage those particular events for folks and stop them.
Yeah, I tell you, I definitely enjoy the feeling that we are kind of crowdsourcing security, and we're learning from others across your whole environment, your customer base, and it definitely makes me feel much better. Well, Colin, thank you so much for joining us today and helping educate our Teleperformance following on LinkedIn. The cyber world is still very scary, but like I said, I definitely sleep better at night knowing that we have CrowdStrike as a partner. Again, thanks to our audience for joining us here today, and hopefully you learned something from this quick conversation, and I hope you have a safe rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.